Okay, I see Commissioner Bell. Looks like Commissioner Shepard has joined us. Oh, Commissioner Briscoe is here too. Commissioner Bell, you have all your commissioners here. If you're talking, Commissioner, you're muted.
I am. Commissioner Shepard, do we have the dog?
We got the dog. Little bugger was running down the street with a salmon skin in her mouth, thinking she had struck the jackpot.
All right, so we will now close the executive session and open the public portion of our Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 Port Commission meeting for the Port of Bellingham. We have a public comment period normally, and I'm just going to announce that we'll hold that public comment as soon as I take roll. It usually lasts about 15 minutes. You're allowed up to 3 minutes for speakers, but we do have a little bit of latitude with that. Please raise your hand if you're wishing to speak. And with that, I'll start the meeting. Commissioner Briscoe?
Here.
Commissioner Shepard?
Here.
Commissioner Bell is here. So now we'll do public comment. Anyone wishing to speak before the commission, anything that's on your mind, please make yourself known either by turning on your camera, raising your hand.
Commissioner, I don't see anyone raising their hands.
No one wishing to speak? We will have another public comment period at the end of the commission meeting. So if something comes up between now and then, feel free to weigh in at the end of the meeting. All right, so I want to get this out of the way first. We have advisory committee meetings. The schedule is for the Marine Advisory Committee. The MAC is October 12th at 6 p.m. The Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, the BIAC, is November 18th at 4 p.m. Comment period at the end of the commission meeting. So if something comes up between now and then, feel free to weigh in at the end of the meeting. So who's ever got their mic on, you're echoing back to me. Thank you. All right, consent agenda. Carrie, do you mind?
Yeah. Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
So anyone wishing to speak on any of the consent agenda items, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Shepard?
I don't have any comments either.
And I have none myself. It's going to be a relatively short meeting. Carrie, do you mind?
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes. Now we have a presentation by Jennifer Novak for Whatcom County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy and an update.
Good afternoon, commissioners. This is Don Goldberg, the Director of Economic Development. Before introducing Jennifer Novak, I'd like to thank my entire team at the Economic Development Team for all their hard work on putting the SEDS document together, as well as the private sector, the public sector, and nonprofits in our area, and the port for having such confidence in us to deliver this important document. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows what regional economic development actually is. It's a set of sustained, concerted actions taken by policymakers to promote the economic well-being and the standard of living of certain communities in our region. These actions may involve investing in infrastructure, social well-being, human capital, business development, and other initiatives. The SEDS document, for me, has two main purposes. The first main purpose is in order for us to receive public grants, federal grants, and local grants. And the second one, which is really important to me, is
it sounds like people are talking over each other.
Is anyone else having that problem, or is the person who just interrupted us the only one having that problem? Commissioner Briscoe and Commissioner Bell, can you hear Don just fine, or are you hearing other people?
I'm the one who just interrupted you, and yes, it sounds like somebody's talking over you.
Well, sir, if
or
you'd
you're-
let me ask the question of my
not
fellow
correct.
commissioners to make sure that they're having that same problem, we can try and get it fixed. Mr. Bell, are you having a
So,
problem?
Mr. Bossabee, would you mute your mic? You probably feedback through your own mic. I'm not having any trouble whatsoever, Executive Director.
Thank you.
It's Mr. Basabi, but
You can mute him, Don.
Did that
You just
fix
couldn't
it?
mute him.
Did that fix it? Peter,
Does that-
just shake your head.
I got it. Okay, well.
It sounds good for me on my end as well.
And sounds good for me on my end. Anyone else having that issue?
Okay, I'm sorry, gentlemen. So the second part of the SEDS report, which is really important to us, is it's our 5-year strategic plan. If we had created this document prior to COVID-19, we would have had to redo the entire document because COVID has had such a dramatic effect on our economy. Fortunately, timing, that was probably one of the only fortunate things about COVID, that we started this document during COVID. And our team was all very, very involved in this for over a year. So we're incredibly lucky to have Jennifer Novick on the team, who has led this effort. And this report was done entirely in-house. We saved a lot of money and time, and I believe it's a document that's at the top level. So without any further ado, it's really my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Novick, our Research and Communications Manager, who's going to go over the technical parts of this document. Thank you so much.
I didn't share though, did I? Hold on. Ricky, move. Got to share the screen. Which one is it? This one?
Great. Take this thing off. Okay, thanks Don for the great introduction. And so happy to be here finally presenting this document to Commission. So I'm going to get right into it. Maybe. Okay, so again, the SED stands for Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, for anyone in the audience who hasn't heard about this yet. So just to clarify, there are sort of two pieces to the SEDS. There's the report and there's a list. The report is basically the strategy as well as the document portion that the EDA requires. The list has to be connected to the report, and the list right now is primarily a lot of infrastructure projects throughout the county, though there are several more general economic development projects on that list as well. The list is updated annually by jurisdictions, and the report is updated every 5 years. Completing the SEDS is a big service to the entire county. So first of all, the report is fundamentally a long-range planning document, but it's based on community outreach. So one of the great things about this document is that it creates eligibility for Whatcom County, for the port, for the 7 incorporated cities, for the tribes, for COG, for the PUD, basically all of the public agencies in the county. It makes them eligible for hundreds of millions of dollars in state, federal, and county funding. So an example of one type of funding that is directly connected to the SEDS is the Port's Revolving Loan Fund. Given that there's a lot of federal money that's potentially coming down the pipeline, particularly for infrastructure, this report and list really places us in a good place in case those new funding streams require any type of report or list for eligibility. It also goes beyond fulfilling the state and federal guidelines because our team really used this as an opportunity to create an internal work plan for the team for the next 5 years, which makes economic development both more strategic and programmatic. So the updating process is really dictated by the EDA, which is the Economic Development Association. That's the federal government department that regulates the SEDS. Basically, one of the main components, if you look at this graphic on your right-hand side, feel free to minimize your Zoom if it's getting blocked on that right hand, is really based on stakeholder outreach, right? Once it gets to the public agency level and our team started managing this, a huge component of that is stakeholder engagement. We started stakeholder engagement in June 2020, and then in January 2021, we established a SEDS External Review Committee, and that had members from all 7 incorporated cities, both the Nooksack Indian Tribe and the Lemhi Nation, as well as COG and the PUD, working with the Port's economic development staff. For stakeholder groups, we solicited feedback from all 3 of the primary stakeholder groups, the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. And they were solicited both early in the process in terms of what their priorities were. They were solicited later in the process for inputs on the SWOT analysis and more general feedback. So this was really a large part of the labor for this report. So as I mentioned, the EDA dictates really the content that's in this report. So there are really 5 main parts. One that's not on here is a summary background, which is essentially the statistics that describe the economic conditions of the region. The other part is the SWOT analysis, which is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And we did those for all 7 incorporated cities, the county, the port, and 13 different industries within the county. The other 3 parts of the report that are required are an action plan. So after you do the SWOT analysis and you've identified these opportunities and challenges, the EDA asks you to develop an action plan. So what are you gonna do about these opportunities and threats? How are you going to act on them? And this really forms the core of the ADO's work plan. The other 2 pieces are the evaluation plan, which is where we talk about our key performance indicators, and an economic resiliency component. Now, the economic resiliency component is interesting because the EDA really wants that kind of baked in throughout the document. However, we decided that given the situation, that resiliency and recovery would also just be a goal within the plan. And part of the reason that we did that was not just because of COVID, but because both emergency management and resiliency planning are so strong in Whatcom County and the port, and we really wanted to showcase some of that. So because the SWOT really forms the core of the plan and is what the action plan's based on and the evaluation plan is based on, I wanted to pull this up. Don't worry, I'll pull a few items out of that very small text to highlight. You don't have to try to read it. So the regional SWOT is designed by feedback from basically all of those 3 stakeholder groups. So Whatcom County gave input, all 7 cities gave input, both tribes gave input, as well as the private sector and the nonprofit sector. Those additional SWOT analyses for the 7 cities in the port can be found in the appendix of the document for anyone who's interested in that sort of stuff. And I think that it's important here to really note that, you know, identifying weaknesses is actually really valuable because then we can make a plan for how to overcome them. They're challenges that we can work on. Another example here of an industry SWOT that's directly related to the port, marine trades, We just wanted to pull this out so you could see an example of an industry SWOT. And these can be used by lots of different actors, right? When trying to identify needs of an industry, when you're looking for threats to mitigate, doing, future planning. So for the marine trades, we can see a lot of the opportunities listed here that were identified by our stakeholders actually involve the port, right? So a lot of people were really excited about the shipping terminal being reactivated, about the waterfront, about BLI's expansion with Southwest Airlines. Shout out to the airport for that one. And just side specifically at the port.
Hey, Jennifer, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When you went through these industry direct ones, did you go through and find the commonalities? So the ones that had strengths, did you lump those into how many times they occurred in each one of those industries, as well as the weaknesses?
Yeah, so there were definitely commonalities, and on the next slide, I'll show you some that we pulled out that were identified in most, I would say the majority of the SWOT analyses. One of the interesting things with doing the industry SWOTs is sometimes within the industries, there were disagreements about if things were actually a weakness or not. And we tried to make sure that we represented that, if there was a disagreement or some type of conflict, that we were honest about that. So here's an example of sort of aggregated opportunities and challenges. So we covered, again, 13 industries. So we did a SWOT analysis for agriculture, commercial real estate, construction, energy, events, healthcare, manufacturing, marine trades, recreation, residential real estate, retail, technology, and tourism. And in the Q&A, I'm happy to discuss further how we chose those 13 industries. But the most commonly identified opportunities by all of the industries, number 1 and 2, the BLI airline expansion and route expansion. People were so excited when the Southwest expansion for BLI was announced, and people are just really excited about further possibilities with that. So congrats to BLI, and we're just so happy to have their expertise working on this. The shipping terminal reactivation was another one that was identified by multiple SWOT analysis, and actually some of the city SWOT analyses. Other commonly identified opportunities were related to innovation and value-added products in ag, marine trades, and advanced manufacturing. And almost everyone agreed that one of the biggest opportunities would be an expedited, efficient permitting process. So we also have some pretty serious challenges that were identified by stakeholders, such as the lack of affordable and available housing, childcare, and the worker shortages. And I would say a couple things to keep in mind. These are challenges that are not surprising to this commission or the port. They're things we've been talking about for a long time. They're also not problems that are specific to Whatcom County or even Washington State, right? These are national level problems at this point. But even though they are national, the question for the SEDS is, what can Whatcom County do to address them? And how can we work on these issues for our community and for businesses? And that's really what our strategic action plan addresses. How are we gonna address some of these challenges head on? So the SEDS is supposed to be built around a set of goals that address these priorities and challenges identified in the SWOT. So we have 6 goals, and I think it's important to note that within both the report and this presentation, numbering does not indicate priority of the goal. They're all very and equally important in our case. So I'm not going to read these, but the first goal is really to address and help strengthen our existing businesses. So, a lot of these strategies and objectives are focused on addressing problems and obstacles that businesses who are already in Whatcom County that they're facing today, right? And part of the reason that we decided that was an important focus was, one, stakeholder feedback, and two, because we know from data that the majority of growth in economies comes from retention and expansion, not from recruitment, although we do have specific strategies in the action plan for that as well. Goal 2 focuses on infrastructure, mostly physical, but some social, because that was also consistently identified across stakeholders as a major challenge to continued growth and development. Goal 3 is our workforce goal and education goal. We worked really extensively with post-secondary ed on these goals and objectives. 4 is about partnerships and relationships with our partners in Lower BC and the surrounding Northwest Washington counties of Skagit Island and San Juan Islands. Goal 5 is about incorporating and prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion work in all of our economic development work and supporting our partners' efforts in that as well. And Goal 6, again, is about recovery and resiliency. So each of these has a set of objectives that fall under them, and then a set of strategies that falls under those. And you'll find that that's the longest section of the document, starting on page 26. So these goals are obviously pretty overarching and pretty big goals, even for 5 years. So I think it's worth noting that our strategy really revolves around working with our partners to address these goals. And we use a version of the hub and spoke model while, recognizing that we are not the actual center. We are in a unique position within the county as a county-wide port and as the ADO to both connect our partners to each other and connect our businesses to partners as well to achieve the goals. So one example of this, for example, if a business calls and they need help with an economic injury disaster loan application, we refer them immediately to the SBDC because that's their lane. So throughout the document, especially in the strategic action plan section, you'll see language such as support and promote, as well as a very long list of partners and actors involved with each of the goals. So here's an example of how we set up the strategic action plan. So our first goal, one of the specific actions that we can take to strengthen our economic base is to create more shovel-ready sites. So for every strategy, we list out the potential partners who might be directly involved in that case. So for making shovel-ready sites available, that means working with the cities, with the county, with the port, with the tribes, as well as private sector landowner and building owners to make the sites level, to extend utilities to them. And then for each of the strategies, there's also a timeline. Okay, this part's really exciting. So
Hey, can I
unlike
interrupt you real quick? What is your number one, what you see as a
Excuse me,
problem?
sir, she's got to do her.
Peter, this is a presentation. We'll have time for comments and questions at the end.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of new to this.
Yeah, can you just write down those questions and then we'll make sure we give you an opportunity at the end of the meeting to have your questions answered.
All right, got it, thanks.
Thank you.
So one thing that makes this SEDS update a lot different than the 2002 and the 2015 report is that we're going to have an online version. And what I'm really excited about here is that this online version is going to serve, one, something that's publicly available to everyone. So anyone in the county, anyone in the world will be able to access this website. There won't be a sign-in, there won't be a paywall, and we're gonna put all of the data that's related to the economy on this website. It'll have demographic data, it'll have workforce data, it'll have infrastructure data. Hopefully it'll even have our GIS maps of the infrastructure as well as the broadband layers when we have broadband. We'll be able to have housing and childcare data there as well, because again, that was two major things that consistently came up for stakeholders. And all of the graphics will also be downloadable individually. So if people want to use them for other reports, or they want to see what the data looks like since the census data was recently released, they can go and look at that. And one of the great things about this is when this draft was completed, the census data was released about 2 weeks later. So having the online version is great because basically as soon as the data is updated and available, our website will be updated. So gone are the days that we'll be relying on 2015 or 2002 SEDS data, or that we'll be scrounging around all the different state websites to try to find the right statistics. So we're really, really excited about that. And that's another, sort of key feature of this document. It's a living document. It will be updated regularly. Our evaluation plan includes both quarterly and annual reviews of our deliverables. So we're really excited about this part. So in terms of next steps, our public comment period ends on September 30th. So we invite any comments through then. And after that, I'll make some edits and address the feedback that we received during the public comment period. And then we will be forwarding the updated draft to the county exec's office for our presentation to county council on October 26th. I just want to thank the commission, thank Rob, thank all of the directors and staff that supported the team through the work. Special thanks to Rob and Mike Hogan for reading and reviewing the final draft. We really, really appreciate it. And the stakeholder engagement and staff input has just made this document so much stronger. So we really appreciate everyone's labor on this document. And now I'm happy to take questions.
So Commissioner, before we allow questions, I think Jennifer deserves huge kudos for her work on this document. I think you'll agree it's the best SEDS we've seen since I've been at the port. She's just done tremendous work on that and just can't thank her enough for that. So your appreciation is welcome.
Thanks, Rob.
I would echo that. Jennifer, this is amazing and readable. So yeah, first, everybody note that website before she takes that off the screen. Hey, Peter, take a look at it. Would love to have you review it. If you've got some questions on it, we'd love to. I know our team would want to hear back from that. I'm going to go around with the commissioners first, and then we'll open this up to anybody else that has a question. Commissioner Briscoe?
Great job, Jennifer. I would like to know, could you back up to the very first thing where it had the part about what wasn't good? Yeah, the challenge. Yeah, there we go. Our threat. Let's see. Wait a minute.
This one?
I know it had to do with. Okay, yeah, and the weaknesses there. It says lack of a U.S. Customs port of entry on the water. Can I ask where you got that information?
That was reported by multiple stakeholders.
Well, this commissioner has had the U.S. Customs come to his vessel several times, both in Bellingham and Blaine, on reentry from coming through Canadian waters, bringing a boat down from Canada. You simply call the U.S. Customs agency, and make an appointment, and they send a person down. So that is not correct.
Okay.
And
that's a perfect type of correction for this because we can update that before we get it to council.
Right, because I know personally that that's not correct. You just call and make an appointment. They don't have a particular office you can go to. They just send an officer out. And they come to Squalicum Harbor all the time. I see them on the main dock when boats from Canada come down to deliver fish. People are passing through. So I know that is not correct.
Okay, thank you for that.
Other than that,
Commissioner
it's
Briscoe?
great.
Oh, is it a limitation not having a physical office, or is this sufficient enough the way it is? We are up in Point Roberts, and they had the same thing. There was a phone on the dock, and you call and the customs comes over and takes care of it. Is that, do other places that are on the border have a different system? Do we need an office? I'm not certain on the distinction.
Well, I don't think you need an office, because if you have an office, you're going to have to maintain that office. It's going to cost more money. It's been this way. I mean, geez, back in the 60s, it was the same way. When my dad got C-stores to go to Alaska, the guy would just come down. There wasn't an office. You just made a phone call and they came down. The same thing like when you land here in Alaska, if you go into Ketchikan, for instance, you if you take C-stores of any kind in the lower 48 and you transit through Canada, when you get to Alaska, your first port of entry, you have to land with customs. You can't leave the vessel. You can't do anything until customs comes down and clears you. It's the same thing when you land. You call, they give you it down here, they'll give you the number, you call the custom agent and he comes down. Now, I'm sure they got an office in the corner of the federal building or something, that they're working out of. But as far as having an office on site on our waterfront, there's really no need for that. You just answer in this days, you just call them up and they show up. You make an appointment and they show up. It works quite well.
Yeah, okay. And I imagine that would be the same if we ever built out a visitor moorage at the old GP wharf that, and we had tourists coming down, people could do the same sort of call and make an appointment and have their vessel met.
Correct. Yeah, the person just has to call the agency, the customs agent, and tell them where they're landing. And they'll give you a time that they'll be there. You're supposed to tell them when you're going to get in, and they'll tell you not to leave the vessel, and they'll be there at a certain time. And they're usually pretty good about it. Once in a while, you get somebody that's, like in all things, is kind of stinky to work with. But 9 times out of 10, they're very, very good at showing up and getting things done right away.
Thank you.
Well, I used to work at Point Roberts, when I was freshman
Hey, Peter,
year. Yeah.
we're going to give you a chance in just a minute. I need to finish with the commissioners. And quite frankly, Bobby, you and Michael went off on a tangent on one piece of a small portion of this document, right? So if we're going to pick them all.
It's not a tangent. It was a correction. There's an incorrect statement on there, and I wanted to make that correct. I said the rest of it was very well done.
Yeah, and this was just an example. This is an incredible document. Okay, Commissioner Briscoe, do you have more?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yeah, good document. And, I think what I was really struck by is how many of these projects and both the opportunities and the challenges that our organization at the port is actively engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
These cover everything from our housing needs, to childcare, to environmental sustainability, the opportunities we have with our business and labor communities and our manufacturing, all sorts of things. And I just kept coming back to the fact that the port is engaged with our partners in addressing these complex challenges throughout the county. So I would really thought it was a well-written document. And I've heard from people in the community who have participated as stakeholders, who have taken upon themselves to come up to me and tell me that they really appreciated the process and how it was managed and the final product of it. And so I think that it has garnered some goodwill and good support from those groups that participate in the process as well. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I reiterate the amount of work that went into this, and the fact that it's as concise as it is incredible to me. I'm a critic of documents of this nature because they tend to sit on a shelf and nobody does anything about them. So as a port, I'm concerned that we don't just let this work sit on a shelf and us do nothing about it. As I listened to your presentation, there's a lot of things that we as the port can cry about, but we really don't have any say in. For example, permitting of projects is nothing the port has any hand in, and yet it was the #1 item on the list. And sometimes we sound like a clanging gong when we talk about it. I know the Business and Commerce Committee went in with a plan to try to help make that process better, but the county didn't didn't care to listen. So I'm concerned that when we have these kind of issues, that we are effective in our communications and that we have a plan to move the challenges that you've identified forward. I believe we're working very hard to get our affordable housing numbers up, working very hard to get educational opportunities for a skilled workforce. But some of these are issues that need to be addressed by other agencies. I just hope our communications are good with those agencies for them to see the impact. And again, I don't want to see this document just sit on a shelf. I'd like to see some action steps taken with it that we identify as priorities. Mm-hmm. And I know Rob well enough to know that he's already all over that. So I look forward to seeing where this goes. But really, this is an amazing first step. And then with that, I think I'll open it up. Peter, did you want to have a couple of questions answered? Your mic is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
You're
Yeah,
good.
apparently I'm the only civilian here or citizen, and I do take a little affront to let you all talk, but not listen to me.
First of all, you're not the only civilian.
I'm
Or
only one.
citizen.
I see four screens, and I see 4 people.
There's more people here than that. And
There's
secondly,
two
it
people.
is the way we run it. So you have plenty of opportunity to speak, and
All right, let me
now
ask
is
you.
your opportunity.
Yep.
Point of clarification, there's
End
22
of the
people on
document.
Zoom, and there is a bunch of people on YouTube.
We need an address and a full name before you speak. That's commission rules.
Peter K. Basabi, 3403 Robertson Road, Bellingham, Washington, 98226.
Thank you.
Retired Marine, just came home after 32 years being gone. Grew up in Whatcom County, grew up in Ferndale, actually. Graduated Ferndale High School, 1986. And now I am, after 32 years in the military, I'm trying to be involved in my community. And
Thank you for your service.
I'm just trying to, well, it was a job. But thank you. Yeah, well, that's a word. That's always weird for us. But we go over the top about making Bellingham a commercial viable port. But what are we doing about that? It has huge potential, as well as the old port in Telco, deepwater port, for bring commercial. I'm reading these articles in the paper about how we want to have more commercial throughput. We got ships out of anchor waiting to go down to Tacoma or going to Seattle. What are we going to do about that? And where's the plan going forward with that?
So Peter, did you have anything specific to the document that we just had a presentation on?
The document had a bunch of small little words that you couldn't read in time. And I'm sorry, I'm straightforward, retired Marine. It just talked circles.
But it's a much bigger document than what she prepared, and it's going to be on the website and available for public comment for some time. So I recommend that you take a look at it.
I will look at that.
Do a deep dive and then send your comments in, and the port will certainly take a look at it. I know Jennifer and Don and his group are anxious to get public feedback.
Yeah, but anytime you just say, well, the data shows, where did the data come from? Did I get talked to? Did any of my friends get talked to? So where does the data come from? That you know, it's very milky to me. You see data, we reviewed the data, we canvassed to get data. Where'd the data come from? I didn't get called. None of my buddies got called. Like I said, I've lived here since I was 2 years old, and I left for a long time. All my friends from kindergarten on up are still here, or leaders of corporations and vice presidents of companies here in Whatcom County. They never got interviewed for data. Nobody reached out to them. So where does the data come from?
So
That's
I can
like
take
a
a,
straight, oh, the data shows. Well, do you send out a little a mailer, and if somebody responds to it and sends it back, do you talk to people?
So Peter, Jennifer's got a response to that, so would you give her a minute?
Yes.
So there's an entire appendices that describes both the stakeholders who we did engage and actually provides a full list of those stakeholders, minus private sector stakeholders. I'm sure that you're aware that many CEOs of companies globally prefer to give this type of information anonymously. So we did not publish the entire list of the private sector actors that we interviewed for this. But I can tell you that we got input from the entirety of the Business and Commerce Committee. They were also offered opportunities to forward stakeholder engagement to their own networks and circles. We also engaged extensively Team Whatcom, which is community and economic development service providers in the county. That includes the chamber as well as the local chambers. That also includes the WBA, Sustainable Connections, the Western Washington SBDC. So these are people that really, really know businesses, especially small businesses in Whatcom County. So the stakeholder engagement was really extensive. And if you have comments, or any of your friends who are just residents or who are business owners have comments, that's why we have this public comment period, and we're super happy to take additional input that you provide us.
You still haven't told me who stakeholders are, other than
So it's in the document, and she said it was in the appendix. So if you look in the appendix of the document, you'll see the people who were the stakeholders who were. And then for your edification, you have just now been asked to provide your comment. So when you say your friends and you have not been invited, this is an open invitation for the entire community to give their feedback to the information that's in this document. And we invite you to be an active participant in this if you want to read it. I don't care if you mark up every page and send it back to Don Goldberg and his team, but this is your opportunity to have a comment on this, because it is not final yet. So instead of complaining about not getting contacted on the first round, this is your chance to participate publicly with this document and have your voice be heard.
and that's exactly what I'm doing.
This is not necessarily the forum for that, because you haven't read it yet. But I would ask you to read it.
Have you read it?
I would ask you to read it and put your comment in.
Have you
This
read
isn't a debate. This isn't a debate forum. If you have a question, you have a question. The question has been answered. Now you need to go to the proper place on the website of the port so you can put your input in. The
All
port
right.
This will not get passed by the Port Commission until we have all read it and digested all of the comments that come with it.
And your comments will be included if you put them
You're
forward.
expecting me to already have done that. So, okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Question baked into the document, that comment kind of messed me up a little bit.
So again, if you would do me a favor, just put all that into a letter to Don Goldberg and his staff at the appropriate space.
An internal work plan, that also bothered me.
Again, this is your opportunity to do that. So just do it all in one location, send it in.
All right, I will.
Okay, anybody else on the in the meeting have a question? Okay, thank you, Jennifer. What a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. What a great job.
Another note, I have a
Jennifer.
question for Don, Ken.
Yeah.
Is Don Goldberg still with us? Don, are you there?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Okay, well,
Hey.
not to worry.
Hey, Commissioner.
Yeah, so about a year ago, you were engaged, I think you and your team were engaged on a study. Was it west of I-5 corridor?
We call it the Infrastructure I-5 Corridor Study. It's a study from basically Bellingham to the border along I-5 and then up the Guide Meridian. And the purpose of the study was to coordinate and GIS infrastructure on residential, industrial land, and utilities, so we could coordinate the cities, county together as they build out the community.
Did your group finish that? And was part of the information from that gathered over the course of that year and a half ago, was that part of what we just saw? Was some of that integrated into this document?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, the first part of the study is completed. We now are going to be getting funding from the county to finish the rest of the county because they like the report. It's less of a report than it is actually a program that allows anybody eventually to find out what utility runs are. Many of the cities don't know what they have or what's adjacent to them. So Jennifer, who just spoke to you about this study, is in charge of that as well. And now that the SEDS is coming to an end, she'll be putting her attention to finishing that. That should go live shortly, though.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And then, and I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. Is it Wasabi? Is that how I pronounce your name? Is it Mr. Wasabi? Okay, you're muted, which is fine. You spoke to two different things. What are we doing at the shipping terminal to get commerce across there? And what about the Intalco-Alcoa dock? The Intalco-Alcoa dock is now owned by another corporation to the south. It's Liquefied Petroleum, I believe is what it is. The Alcoa company does not own that dock anymore. They sold it, and the port has no jurisdiction over that. However, we have been engaged in talks with folks to do something across that property and dock. As far as the terminal, our Bellingham shipping terminal, we have done extensive repairs. We have companies, we have contracts with a company that's coming down there and talking with another one. So we're working very, very hard and have been since 6 years ago, since I became a commissioner. It got started about then or just before. We've been trying to put it back together. We've been trying to get a rail spur in there. We've been doing a lot there. So don't think anybody on the commission or our staff has been sitting on their haunches and letting that terminal sit idle. If you would like a full report of how the ILWU feels about our actions to the terminal and try and get it going, you should call up Joe and talk with him. Maybe you know him.
All right. Hey, can you hear me
there
now?
are things being done.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I remember when it was GP down there and basically destroyed that whole environment down there. And I understand the length of time to do the detox and hazmat material removal. I just think there's so much potential to that. And I was a mobility officer in the military, and I offloaded ships and ports and all over not all continents, but probably 6 of them. And just throwing in how are you going to set up the port though? It's not just getting the facilities right. You got to have a infrastructure for input and output and offload and onload and all those type of different things that it goes along with having a commercial port. And how big a commercial port does Bellingham really want? You got to kind of look at that as well, because trucks.
Can I ask how old you are? Just offhand.
I just turned 53.
Okay, so you're a few years behind me, about, let's see, 11 to be exact. So I watched the Port of Bellingham become enormous, gigantic, and what it can do and what it can have firsthand. And I watched it go downhill. So I'm well aware of what the Port of Bellingham can do. And you should engage on the port website, because a lot of your questions will be answered in the information that's all on, it's on our Port of Bellingham website. It
Oh,
talks
I
about
want a
all
job.
of this.
I want to have a job and part of that. I want to be a part of this, actually.
Okay, this isn't the
Yeah.
job interview here now, but I want to answer those two questions. We are doing things that nobody's sitting around. We're trying to figure out how to put people to work and move commerce through this county. So
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
But
So
I don't think
thank you for joining us today.
I don't want to make it too big, but it's got to be big enough.
So
Very good. Thank you.
I move on. Does anybody else have any other questions? I think Commissioner Shepherd, are you done? Are we on to other business? Other business, Commissioner Shepherd? And we'll do public comments again at the end.
Sure, I've got a couple items. I've been attending way too many meetings, I feel like, but I wanted to give a couple reports from some highlights from a few that I attended. I was at the WPPA Legislative Committee today, and they just gave a laundry list of some things that they're working on. I wanted to mention two that I found interesting. One, they're working on a fix to some of the language around MOTCA funding that we've talked about before, the challenge with needing permits in hand before project funding comes. And so they are continuing to engage with ecology to see if they can get a fix on that. And if they're not able to get a rules fix, looking at options for a legislative one. So that's one of their priorities. They also brought up a problematic new tax on dark fiber that they are watching, and they are again trying to look at a fix for that. It's of concern to several of the ports who are working in the broadband space, and I think will be of concern to us moving forward. This came through negotiations with Department of Revenue and the state over some new authority over retail authority. And so it's one of those that they are going to continue to work on. So I try and go to those legislative committee meetings whenever possible. On broadband, I was going to see if Gina would give us, see if Gina's available here. I don't know if I see Gina on, maybe she's in the room.
Yes. Hi,
But
Commissioner Shepherd, Gina Stark.
Hi there,
Bellingham.
Gina.
Yeah, I came
I
to
was
be here in
gonna
person
see if
to
you-
support my teammate, who I think did a fantastic job presenting. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm here in person.
Well, good, you're here. I just want to update on two things on broadband. One, the county continues to look at some of the federal funds that are going to be coming through, and has funds that they anticipate to dedicate towards broadband for expansion for several of the routes that we've been looking at, both out to Deming and Glacier, along Highway 9, and also Point Roberts. I wanted to see if Gina also had a update for us on some of the current planning that the committee has been looking at and discussing for next steps to bring direct connection to homes and businesses in the Nooksack Valley area.
So I do, Commissioner Shepherd. So again, Gina Stark, Port of Bellingham Economic Development. So many of you have heard me give reports about the work that we've been planning out in the East County. And we've been really trying to be strategic on how we spend our CURB dollars, which is Community Economic Revitalization Board dollars. And so we really wanted to be sure that we work with our internet service providers and work collaboratively with them. And so we recently went before the CURB board and said, you know, we want to recognize where our current ISP providers are potentially upgrading their existing infrastructure, so specifically like Ziply, and not do an overbuild. There is a lot of communities out there that are unserved, underserved. And so in recognition of that, we asked the curb board if we could potentially change where we were targeting our curb dollars. And so with that, we asked if we could move and do a build in North Mosquito Lake Road, which is just off of the Mount Baker Highway, which is severely underserved. And in fact, many of those community members are not served. And also if we could then serve an area just east of the town of Nooksack, which is also severely underserved. They have just often just one individual or one ISP provider that is serving them. And we were approved to what is called change of scope of work to do that and move our curb dollars to then do a build there. We will be doing a mid-mile and last mile, so ensuring that we will be serving the end customer, which is really exciting. So when we're done with the build, we know that when we walk away that people will have service, that there will be an ISP provider that will be providing service to that end customer. And that we will be, hopefully all goes well, bringing stuff to the commission very, very soon and beginning construction very, very soon. So it's an exciting time. So yes.
Great. And Mr. Basavi, I see you have your hand up. We're going to finish our other business period, and then we do have a public comment period after this where you're welcome to ask additional questions. Well, thank you, Gina. We've been trying to make sure that we have actionable products that come out of our broadband work. We all know that this is an issue. It comes up in everything, whether it's in the SEDS report or it's in our meetings that happen throughout the week. We know broadband is an issue throughout the community. And so I'm pleased that we have a tangible proposal to move forward with bringing internet service directly to individual households. I think the number is around 650 households that would be served by this that project. So good work on that, Gina, and I know you'll keep us updated on the next steps.
Yes, absolutely. And we're really excited. We're also really excited that we will be partnering with a local ISP provider, Pogo Zone, as well. So I wanted to be remiss of like, how are we going to serve them? Yes, that we will be partnering with a local ISP provider. And yes, the count is 654 homes that we will be serving in these two areas. So it's pretty exciting news. So thank you.
Great. And my last is, we continue to have a good collaboration and partnership with the PUD. We continue to support each other in our interests and also work on our individual and specific projects. So we really, Gina and her team continue to work on how are we connecting individual homes and how are we getting that mid-mile fiber in to make sure that people have the actual fiber so that they can connect to the internet. The PUD is going to continue to look at other additional questions. One of those questions that they are going to continue pursuing is there an option for a public internet service provider option in the community? Other communities like the city of Anacortes have public ISP providers. And is that something that would be useful here to make sure that there is enough competition and opportunity for individual households to get the best rates possible at the lowest, the best service at the lowest rates. So they're going to continue to look at that question, and we're trying to differentiate the roles so we're able to both work on things that we see as possible and best in line with our scope of work. If either of you ever have any questions about the broadband work, I'm always happy to take those to the group, or Gina or Rob are at those meetings as well. That's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Well, I'll start off with, I have a question for Commissioner Shepherd. At the MACA meetings, was there we had any movement on, folks being able to dip their hand in that cookie jar and take the money and do other things with it? Has there been any movement on that, Michael?
Not that I know of. And somebody else could probably answer that better. Brian, if he's still on.
Yeah, thanks, commissioners. Yeah, Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. No, that's not something that we've heard recently. I think with the last biennial budget, actually, and the recent MODCA reforms on the funding approach really actually solidified that a fair amount. And so far, it's looking good. The one issue that did come out of that, though, was what Commissioner Shepherd was speaking to, was that there was a provision in the budget, or in the budget, that required permits in hand prior to getting funding. And with these long multi-biennium types of projects, where we have to compile funding over multiple years, that's kind of problematic. So WPP is working on addressing that. But right now, we haven't heard about any big proposed MODCA funding shifts to other funds. I think part of that, though, is because a lot of the COVID relief has gone to state and local governments and that sort of thing. So the state budget looks okay. It's when the budget is in trouble, they start looking for pots of money to move things around it. So right now we're keeping watch of it. What we're trying to do is get the projects done so we can spend the money we got, right? So that's what our focus is.
Let me just
Where
add
are
on
we
to
at on that, Brian? As far as our projects that are funded and unfunded, are we pretty well funded on almost everything now?
We are. We have good amount of funding in place for our either in contract or it's slated to be under contract soon. We're moving a lot of our projects, which is nice, also into the engineering phase and the permitting, which allows us, it gets a step closer to construction. There's still, the Wacom Waterway and the ASB. Those are the big ones that will be coming to the commission, in the near future to talk about that a little bit more. That, of course, is not fully funded yet, but that's down the road. That's the big one that we're going to be working towards.
How about our Blaine issue up there with the old CK plant was there? How are we doing on that one?
Yeah, that one's moving forward really well. We've been meeting with Ecology. I have to double check exactly on where we're at on the grant funding. The good news is there that we actually have some historic insurance that we have been utilizing to fully fund that project to keep it going. And so that's also a project that's actually moving forward really well.
Good. Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Just to add really quickly onto that, this is Rob. Brian's right. The right and the left in Olympia are unified on this. It's really strange compared to past years that they don't want to sweep MODCA for other funds. They are dedicated to keeping it for cleanup activities. So it's really good to see that. Our focus in our legislative activities needs to shift to going after this permitting issue. We can't emphasize that enough. The NMFS, National Marine Fisheries Service, sometimes referred to as NMFS, is causing these permit delays that are taking us out of the MODCA funding cycle. And Olympia has to recognize that and make some exceptions unless NMFS is going to get their act together and start speeding up the permits. But that's where our legislative effort needs to be.
Thank you, Rob.
Have you ever seen a permit process speed up?
No, generally it goes the other way.
They only have a brake pedal. They don't seem to have gas pedals.
No. Other than that, I don't believe I have any other business. Thank you.
So Michael, I just want to say thank you for your effort. And I am absolutely thrilled that we're actually going to do some last mile work. I think it would have been a shame to put all the dark fiber in without at least knowing what it entails to do the last mile. Just the fact that we've got a section of our community that's we're going to learn a lot, I guess is what I'm trying to say. By just doing that, because we'll understand what technologies need to be in place, where we have the right kind of power, where we've got the right speeds, and what different delivery mechanisms we're going to put through. The dark fiber is just the power line. Getting it connected to the house is really the hard work. So I really want to emphasize that that's a huge issue, and thank you for supporting that, and I fully endorse it. Aside from that, in addition to this document, I just want to make it known publicly that we have our budget about to be released for public comment as well. So if you want to see where we're going to be spending the money, excuse me, and where we're going to be allocating our resources, that's a good place to go. So the website's—
It's okay. You don't have to choke up, Ken. It's okay.
It's only water, so really.
It's only a budget.
I've been talking all damn day. It's just been insane. Anyway, so We've got a lot of that stuff on the website that everybody needs to take a look at, because this is the time of year when a lot of those documents get finalized for next year's activities. And now is the time to weigh in on it. Other than that, I have nothing.
I have one more thing I'd like to say. You prompted my memory, Ken. It has to pertain to the port website. I think about 3 years ago, I asked if we could, bring our website up to date and make it a little easier to deal with. And I'd like to give a kudos to staff for doing that. The website today compared to what it was 3 years ago is night and day. And it's one heck of a lot easier for people to navigate and figure out where the documents and things are. And I know they're still working on it, but to date, it's 200% better, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for recognizing that. Mike Hogan and Carrie Jones probably get the shout out for that one, and then our IT department as well. But yeah, it is a work in progress. We'll continue to make it better. As we go around, look at other ports' websites, you get ideas of how cool you can make it. So we got a ways to go, but thank you for that acknowledgement.
Okay, any other comments by the commissioners? Okay, we'll open the meeting up. It's the end of the meeting, so we will now do public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on any topic, feel free to do so. Now is the time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, or your questions if we can answer them, and we'll take it from there. Anybody wishing to speak?
Yeah, I probably interrupted enough and think I got everything across that I was thinking about, but there's so much potential in Bellingham Port to and do it in a right way and not in a huge. We don't want a SeaTac, we don't want a Seattle port, but we want a port that can actually, bring in 600-foot ships and do some throughput, but that's going to require some redesignation of roads. We can have 40-foot container trucks pulling through downtown Bellingham. So it would require some real thought. And I don't know. I just retired out of the military, and I got bored being retired, so I want to get involved in something. So if I can get involved in this, I'd like it. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else wishing to speak? Commissioner Briscoe.
I'd just like to tell Mr. Bastabi that you can write any one of the commissioners, email us with your ideas and thoughts on different things. And we're always glad to take all of that information and put it into our thought process here to try and make the Port of Bellingham better. We know that there's a lot of talented people in our community and have great ideas that don't always get to where they need to be. So put your fingers on the keyboard, do some typing, and send us your ideas, and we'll certainly try to integrate those thoughts. It sounds like you have a lot of experience, and you may have some experience that we can use. Thank you.
And I'll just close with the comment that we have some of the best thinkers on the planet in our staff and in this commission. Some of our dialogues are amazing, and I put this staff at the top of the list of any staff in any port in the state. So we're going to do the right thing. With that, any more comments? If not, I'm going to ask that we adjourn. Commissioners, are you okay with that?
I'm fine.
Sounds good. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Basabe. Appreciate it today.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Am I allowed to come?